All right, good evening. Welcome to tonight's school board meeting. It's Monday, November 22nd, 2021, 6 o'clock. We're in the Susan Tully Lives of the boardroom of the 1887 building. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Mr. Kelly to call the roll, please.
All right, we'll note that Mrs. Fisher is excused. Mr. Gayhart?
Here.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Here.
Mr. Martell?
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Here.
Mrs. Ray?
Here.
We'll note that Mr. Scarrow is also excused. Ms. Stoltz?
Here.
And Ms. Warpagel?
Here.
We do have a quorum and we'll continue. I will note that tonight's meeting has been noticed for state statutes. Do we have any community participation other than what's on the agenda? Participation. All right, then we'll dispense with reading that. We'll go to the West Side student presentation. Ms. Russell.
I just wanted to introduce, thanks for having us. I have Mr. Russell here with students that will share about some project leading the way and the variation of traits. So they have a slideshow that will share with you. So present it to you guys.
Hi, Ms. Russell. Come on over, friends. If you remember how we lined up, that'd be great. Otherwise, I didn't write. I think Matthew was first. And if we're out of order, that's okay. We can always rearrange as it goes, can't we?
Here, we can
Okay,
spread
friends,
her across
spread
the
out
room.
down here. Remember, like we lined up in the back. Okay, great. And then Mr. Hackett. Okay, great. Well, everyone who came today, I'm glad that we have the chance to share some things with the community because my class really did a great job. This is the second year I'm teaching this particular project lead the way unit on heredity and variations of traits. And my third graders this year, the whole class could have come. They all did just a fantastic job. They were given some short tutoring of how to do Google Slides, and they just did a phenomenal job. And they are going to share with you some of their presentations. If you'd like to click the slide. So for those of you who'd like, you can look through this. These are the objectives for the whole unit. It really is about making them global learners. So they're not just learning the stuff in our packet and in our unit, but they're also integrating a lot of technology into their skills. Okay. These are, these were the goals. We introduced a lot of vocabulary. We did bar graphing. They looked at things such as what kind of earlobes do we have? Who has dimples? What's our hair color? Those types of things, all in advance of this particular lesson. They put together a Google slide and they identified a particular animal and then explained what the inherited traits were and what the acquired traits were. Okay, our first one is Carly Bedard, and she wasn't able to come. She was gone the last couple days, and so she did the brown bear. You can click on the next slide. She told the inherited traits of the brown bear. And then again, the next slide is her acquired traits. But they learned how to put pictures into the background, how to do bullet marks, how to do titles. So pay attention to spelling. Next, we have Matthew Duquette.
Sharks, inherited and acquired traits. This is my table of contents. A baby is born, inherited traits. Some ferocious teeth for eating prey, an incredible nose to smell prey and predators, gills to breathe, flexible fins to swim fast, cartilage to move around without trouble. Shark fact, sharks can smell one drop of blood from a mile away. What did you learn? Acquired traits. They learned how to hunt successfully. How do you think sharks already know how to munch on prey? Sharks also learned how to smell from a faraway distance. This is my glossary.
Next, we have
you.
Theodore Alvarez.
This is my presentation about wolves. This is my table of contents. Inherited traits. Wolves live in a pack to keep each other safe. They have sharp teeth to curl. For to stay the right temperature. Strong paws so they keep up with the weapons. Acquired trees are to hunt and attack each other. We both have experience with that. Traits are things such as railroad, most of the North Pole, and northern deserts.
This is Evelyn Phelan.
Oh, I'm scared.
Ooh, I like that.
Oops, sorry.
Okay, next is Jacob Kretschmer.
This is my slide presentation about Tango. And heritage traits. Turtles are cool in some ways. They eat seeds, seaweed, and some eat fish. Some eat bugs and weevils and lakes. Shells protect them. And acquired traits. Baby turtles have a shell and they hide in it when there is danger. They learn how to hunt for food.
We have African elephants by Lillian Gibson.
This is my slide presentation about African elephants. Inherited traits. Food. African elephants eat grass, bamboo, and leaves. They eat with their tusks. When the tusks wear out, new ones grow in. They also eat figs, coconuts, and bananas. They can eat up to 440 pounds a day. Babies. Baby elephants grow in their mother for 2 years. When they are born, they are 200 pounds and 3 feet tall. Babies like acquired traits. Babies are taught to use their tongue to eat. Babies learn to walk, and they learn to fight with their tusks.
Now we have Aislinn Vaughn.
This is my slide presentation about wildcats. Inherited traits. Wildcats have many traits. They have so much, I'll have to tell you some of it. Let's start. Wildcats have paws to run and walk. They have eyes in front to see where they are going. Also, they have tall ears to hear sharp and pointy teeth to grab and help. Acquired traits. They learn to stop their prey. Wildcats learn how to climb trees when they are in danger. Wildcats also learn how to pounce. Wildcats are very sneaky.
And then we have Caleb Brooks.
This is my slide presentation about megalodons. What they eat. Megalodons eat dolphins, other sharks, sperm whales, baleen whales, and killer whales. Since they were an apex predator, a big ocean. Who did? Megalodons very sharp teeth. Megalodons have about 276. The tallest megalodon tooth is 16.9 centimeters long. Is a megalodon bigger than a school bus? Yes, it is as long as 2 school buses. Megalodons were and still are the biggest fish yet to date. Megalodons are 3 times as big as the largest fish in shark in the sea today. Inherited traits. Shark teeth means eyes on the side of their head, which is unusual because it was the predator in gills. Megalodons are extinct. They died over 2 million years ago. But if the mosasaur still existed, the megalodon would have gone extinct way before it actually did go extinct. Predators. How to hunt, how to swim, how to avoid coral reef, and which animals do.
And then I have 2 University of Wisconsin science method students. We have Miss Kylie Wright first, and then we have Mr. Kerwin Hackett, and so they both like to just say a couple things.
Hi everyone, I'm Miss Wright, and I've had the pleasure of being in Mrs. Russell's classroom for about the past 7 weeks. We've primarily focused on science, but I've also been in there to observe a few social studies classes. And I also have been able to teach 2 lessons about genetics and traits. And I've learned a lot from the students as well, along with their presentations. And I've just been able to see them grow and learn about all the different things about traits and genetics. And it has been a lot of fun for me, as I hope that they've had fun having me in the classroom as well. I've also been able to learn a lot about Project Lead the Way, and that is not something that I have learned previously. But Project Lead the Way has been something that I have been able to learn off of and gain a lot of experience with. And I have really enjoyed being in Mrs. Russell's classroom.
Okay, hi guys, I'm Mr. Hackett, and I had the pleasure of observing Mrs. Wright's class, and all these guys are in there, as you know. And man, it's just great working with all of them and like witnessing all the different teaching techniques Mrs. Russell uses. And then like when we have work time during the day, like I've been here for about 7 weeks, like Mrs. Wright, but when we have work time in the day, like just helping them with different things, you know, explaining things in different ways, so each student will get it, you know, the way they get it. So, I mean, this has been a great opportunity, and thanks to Mr. Tadlock, professor, I really like it.
Great job to the students, and I want to give Ms. Wright, Mr. Hackett credit as well. The Whitewater students, we facilitate a course here, the science methods, and we've done the math methods, but it would be a lot easier for them to just stay on campus and do the course there on campus, so they make a big commitment by driving down each week and getting into the classrooms and working with the students hands-on. So good work. And really the elementary teachers or the other cooperating teachers are the instructors for it.
Well, they make my job look really easy if they didn't.
No, it's not easy.
All these kids here, they just did a phenomenal job. Right, so if you don't have any questions for us.
Thank you. This is great.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
great.
Yeah, great job.
How'd you choose your animals? Just have
I was wondering.
creatures, insects, animals.
Yeah.
Just ones that you like?
Did everyone pick or were you assigned?
We just picked.
That's
picked
okay.
it. We picked it that we
Okay.
Okay.
Very fun.
I picked my favorite. I picked my least.
Pick my second favorite.
I picked shorts. I have 2 shirts. That short backs on.
That have sharks, so it helps. Nice.
You have to do much research just like your shirt.
I love it.
Any other questions for me? Great work, good job. Thank you. All right. And you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the board meeting if you want. Saw some cringing going on.
Yeah, you must have America. I was like, what is going on? I couldn't even look at it for a second. Like, I will have literally. Yeah. Today's nice. No, I'm fine. Sharks don't bother me. Thank you. Sharks. Yeah. My name's Sharks and alligators. Alligators. I need to live under my bed. Mine too. Your toes are sticking out. Alligator was gonna get me.
And then, all of our school board minutes, November 8th. Questions? I passed out the closed session, regular session.
Thank you for everything.
No questions, we should do them separately. So looking for a motion to approve the regular session.
I move to approve the minutes of November 8th, 2021 regular school board meeting as presented.
Is there a second?
Okay.
So moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the November 8th regular session school board meeting as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Gayheart?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. Martell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Ray?
Yes.
Ms. Stoltz?
Yes.
Ms. Borpig?
Yes.
Motion carried. And then the closed session. Motion.
I move to approve the minutes of the November 8th, 2021 closed session school board meeting as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded to approve the closed session minutes of the November 8th, 2021 school board meeting as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Gayheart?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. Martell?
Abstain.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Abstain.
Mrs. Ray?
Yes.
Ms. Ms. Stoltz?
Abstain.
Ms. Borpig?
Abstain.
It's not gonna be able to pass.
Yeah.
We're gonna have
There's
to,
only three.
we're gonna have to.
We need to
table
edit
it for
our.
Next meeting for some of people. Like three.
Yeah. There's only three of us.
Table that. Paul's at home.
All right.
Sorry, I should have caught that before
No,
we
I
started.
don't know.
All right. Moving on to general and other fund bills. Mr. Truon.
The general and other fund bills this evening covers checks number 144,610 through 144,738. Wire numbers 969 through 978. ACH numbers 197 through 218, and options renovation wires number 979 and 980, and the combined amount of $451,196.13. There's a memo providing some additional detail on several of the bills in your packet, and then following the bill listing is a copy of the treasurer's report for the month of October.
Questions for Mr. Truon?
I have a few. Just understanding inflation's kind of across the board. Like I just, we paid our energy bill, but just it kind of triggered something in my. Are we seeing a huge increase, or like what are we seeing for increase in our energy costs?
In terms of electricity or natural gas, or probably
Either
all
one. Either one.
We used to have, you'll see a billing in there for BP, and they were our transporter for natural gas. So we used to go to the market, the NYMEX, and kind of lock in our prices.
Yep.
Sometimes we did that for up to 3 years.
Yep.
BP got out of that business.
Oh.
They're saying they're no longer going to provide that service in Wisconsin. So we went back to We Energies.
Okay.
So it's going to be, and We Energies does go out in the market and lock in rates. So those bills may fluctuate from month to month, but I can't go back and say, oh, this is gonna be our rates for this
Right.
time period any longer
Yeah,
because of that change.
okay, I just didn't know if we were being affected by a lot of increases, and did we budget for that, and,
We did not budget really in anticipation of large increases.
Okay.
So,
are we seeing?
it's too early, not
It's too
yet.
early,
I
okay.
think we might, and of
Okay.
course, the weather itself will affect, some of that in
Sure.
terms of temperature, but, I think to answer your question is, it's to be determined a little bit.
Okay,
I wish we had those locked in price
Yeah.
structure from the NYMEX, but we don't have that any longer,
Okay.
so.
and then another question on the E2E exchange. So the bill that we just paid, is that an annual thing, or?
No, I think it's quarterly, but
It
the
is
amount varies depending on what we claim.
Okay,
So for that particular one, we received, let's see here, I have that down here. A federal reimbursement, Mr. Dricken was able to obtain, for our Chromebook purchases.
Mhm.
So the amount of reimbursement is under the Emergency Connectivity Fund. So we're gonna get, we will receive $238,000, basically
Okay.
reimbursing us for this year's Chromebook purchases.
got it. So
Plus-
it's a small investment
In
for a big
relation to
return.
yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, we probably wouldn't do it. But
Yeah,
the
yeah.
amount of paperwork required for that, and then our hotspots too, we'll get reimbursement on
Yeah.
that at the end of the year. So it's
Okay.
gonna be about $250,000
Wow,
total.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And then could you explain a little bit, maybe I'm the only one who doesn't quite understand, but regarding the ACA, that's a penalty that we pay?
Yeah, because we would have had an employee who was eligible and received a subsidy in terms of
Right,
the non-affordability
Right.
component of the ACA Act.
okay,
So, and I think I mentioned that's probably the second one we've received since the ACA has been in place. So at that time, we did kind of analysis, as to potentially avoid that 100% avoiding, we would have to
Yeah.
increase the district participation by such a large amount. It really didn't make sense.
okay, so it's not being utilized by other than maybe one person?
Right. And in fact, that individual worked part-time is now full-time.
Okay,
We didn't qualify.
okay,
So.
so going forward, we shouldn't,
It could vary, it depends. It depends on the employee group and if they took the health insurance and what other income they have. So there's a number of factors, but certainly if it became a large number, maybe we'd reevaluate it, but it hasn't been for us.
Okay.
So, good question.
and I'll wait to ask my other question because it kind of comes up later.
Other questions for Mr. Trump? Hearing none. With no motion.
I move to approve the general and other fund bills of November 22nd, 2021, check numbers 144-610 to 144-738, wire numbers 969 to 978, ACH check numbers 197 to 218, and options renovation wire numbers 979 to 980, in the combined amount of $451,196.13 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the general and other fund bills of November 22nd, 2021, checks number 144-610 to 144-738, wire numbers 969 and 978, ACH check numbers 197 to 218, and options renovation wire numbers 979 to 980, in the combined amount of $451,196.
Mr. Gabbard?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. Martell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Ray?
Yes.
Ms. Stoltz?
Yes.
Ms. Borpego?
Yes.
Motion carried. Adult meal price adjustment pursuant to the federal lunch requirement.
This is being presented to the board for action due to the requirements under the National Lunch Program that basically require that we increase prices to such a level that it's not being offset by the reimbursements we're getting from the federal government for our lunch program. And this was waived for a time period. I mean, we've been under the seamless summer options program really since like March of 2020. And as a result, there's been free lunch, obviously, for our students, and they waive kind of that adult calculation until this year, and so now you need to make that adjustment. So those adults who participate in the lunch program are going to pay more for that as a result. So
I certainly don't like them telling us if to raise the prices. Never have. They've done this a couple times over the years.
Yes.
Where our lunch program operates fine without doing it, but and in this case, we're probably, with inflationary costs and labor costs probably likely to go up. We probably would have had to raise a little bit anyway, but this is significant.
Yeah.
Increase, which we
the
didn't
question
have
is, what's going to happen next year?
But
Right.
they're forcing us, that's the other thing where the
Yes.
government just reaches in and
And
forces us to
we
do
just
something.
don't know. Right? Yeah, because some think, well, maybe we'll just continue with this free lunch arrangement. Others saying, well, we can't do that. So it's a federal kind of discussion. So at this point, we have really no information on what that will look like for the student.
Yeah. Guess we'll find out. In any case, other questions for Mr. Truanner on that? Anyone? Hearing none? Looking for motion.
I move to approve the adult meal price adjustment as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded to approve the adult meal price adjustment as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Ms. Stoltz,
Yes.
Ms. Borpego.
Yes.
Motion carried. School calendar, Mr. Tadlock.
All right. Looking at this school year's calendar, something that we've really run into with I don't know if it's so much a shortage of subs or an increased need for substitute teachers. Tammy Fisher just shared with us that they were glad to announce the 8th birth amongst her staff since the start of the school year. That's out of roughly 30. So almost a third of her staff are out on maternity leave right now. You combine that with, I believe, another handful out at West Side and some at the high school and the middle school. So there's a lot of needs aside from it being, a year where we have a lot of staff who are out due to either themselves contracting COVID or their kids or their family having COVID. And so there's been a lot of coverage internally. We've talked about that. We did some salary adjustments on that. One of the biggest challenges that teachers have are just, they don't want to take off because they know there's not a sub to go and do their medical appointments and do those other self-care things that they need to. So looking at the calendar the second half of the year, the way this school year was structured originally, when I sat down with our admin team, we really felt like we needed to convert 3 of our built-in snow days into days where we could have scheduled times off where staff could do those self-care things, go to the appointments that they need to, not have to use those leave times and put a strain on the already strained system, and or just give them recognize we're giving you a blow or a break in that second half of the year as needed. But when we looked at the calendar, just the way this year was set up, there was some uniqueness to it. I remember vividly because I really felt like having the full 2 weeks in December off would have been a great idea, but I was outvoted for President's Day when this calendar was set up, and me still bemoaning this shared leadership here. No, but the reality in retrospect, it paid off in breaking up some of the second half of the year as we looked at this calendar. And so we do have times off that are built in that aren't in a traditional year that were already scheduled, like President's Day Monday in February after an in-service day. And also because Good Friday, which is a scheduled holiday in the school district, doesn't butt up with spring break.
Right.
So it gives a separate, break there in April. But in looking at that, what we'd like to do is if you look at the January date, we originally had the 17th and the 18th scheduled as days off for a 2-day in-service that we were looking at doing and working with Avid on. We felt that the pricing and the value of the training, while it was a very valuable workshop, we just felt like their pricing wasn't where it needed to be for us to be hosting something like that. And so we partnered with Gateway Technical College to do a similar training, but a little bit more compressed. And they're going to do that training on the 18th. So what we'd like to do on the 17th is just schedule that as a day out for staff. It's already scheduled as a student day out. Happens to be Martin Luther King Day that day as well, but would like to just give that to staff. That way, they can plan on that day being completely free, not having school responsibilities. And then the next day that we would like to add, which currently is not scheduled as a day off, is February 4th. So I'd like to modify the calendar. Really, that's only using one of our built-in. I think a lot of people don't realize we have more instructional time than what is needed. We do that on purpose in case there's some inclement weather. The high school and the middle school have 5 extra days built into the schedule. The elementary schools aren't required to go to school as long as the high school and middle school, so their extra days come out to about 12. So this would just be using one of those 5 additional days from a time standpoint. And so that's what we'd like to propose.
Is it still possible if we had snow days that we could do virtual days this year?
Yeah, but I wouldn't require that unless we got to where our snow days were used up. Yeah.
Okay.
But yes, that's what I look for, man.
It's a good idea.
I think you don't like that.
You were already off on one, you just get one extra.
All right.
Let's do it.
I guess what would be the purpose of adding in the February 4th one? Just
That would be just to give that additional day for the appointments, the self-care, recognition of all the extra time that they're putting in and managing, covering the other classes and so forth.
We put in all 5 last year,
We did,
so now we're just adding 2.
just really one. Yeah.
really
Right,
one
correct
because,
one.
yeah,
Well, they went to service on the 17th.
Right.
Yes.
Right, correct. No,
One and converting one from an in-service / work day to just, yeah, right. Yes. Which I know the 5 days were really appreciated last year from the staff. I would say from the parents, the students, and the families, the first 3 probably were. I started to hear like in the late April and the May one, why do we have off again before Memorial Day and so forth. So we've taken that into consideration, that feedback as well. But it would be a change to the calendar, so we'd need a formal approval.
Any thoughts? Paul, do you have any thoughts? Paul?
No, I think giving them a day off to kind of recoup is probably a blessing right now.
Obviously, for working parents, you would send out an email for the holiday. Right.
right. Yeah, I guess that my only hesitation is that we're coming, so in January, we're coming off of Christmas break, winter break, and then we have 2 weeks of normal school, and then we have a shortened week of 3 days. And then we have 1 week of normal school, and then another shortened week with only 4, and then a normal week, and then another week where it's a shortened week. So it just feels like
Oh, there's no school on the 18th.
there's a lot of, there's no school on the 18th or the 21st, right?
Right.
So that's 3 more days off in February. I don't know, it just feels like there's a lot of inconsistency in getting into a pattern and between January and February. That's my only hesitation.
And we looked at the first part of May, but that doesn't work due to the AP exam schedule.
Okay.
and
Yeah,
what was going on.
yeah.
What day is that? That's the second week in May?
Yes, but Chris, the
Probably
first one's even start
Probably
as
the
early as
first
the
2
fifth.
weeks.
The first 2 weeks.
I would say it's week of the 2nd and the 9th.
Yeah. I don't know. That's my only hesitation is that it just feels like there's a lot of breaks. And it,
Makes sense. It's hard to get on
yeah, it's right. But it's one day, so I don't know. I can go either way. It's
And I don't know how many doctor's offices are open or closed on President's Day, if that has an impact or not.
Around here,
I
I don't.
assume
I don't
most are
think
open.
Not
I
around
don't
here,
know.
we're not
doesn't-
affected.
yeah, the only thing it really affects is sometimes banks will close, but that's
Right.
about it.
Yeah. Or post office and banks.
Right.
I think everybody else is open here. Market's open.
Right.
Um,
It's just Illinois that shuts down.
Right.
So. I can go either way, but
It's hard to say that this year was gonna go back to normal though either. And it's probably been more stressful this year than it was last year, because now we're adding a whole new dimension for the second time.
Hey,
So,
we've
it's not
had
a
more
question that
sick
they don't-
people
This year than we did last year.
this year, yeah,
Correct.
than we did all of last year.
And we're looking
combined.
at numbers and
Yeah.
statistics and everyone's.
that's a first Friday. That doesn't affect us with any counts or anything, right? Okay.
Oh, at the one in February.
Yeah, I can't remember when the first Friday counts are.
September and January.
Okay, so we're good.
I think I'd have significant hesitation if it was more than one day, but I mean,
Okay,
for one day,
For the family
If we-
impact is one day.
for
yeah,
the family
right.
impact, it's one day.
For the staff, they get the two.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like the impact at all, but I
Correct.
mean, I think it's a lot of time to figure out
Till February.
childcare and stuff by then. And I think that's been, last year when I saw some emails, after we did the 5 days or whatever, which I wouldn't suggest doing again, but
Yeah.
there were some people that had a difficult time finding childcare, which I
Yeah.
can understand.
We did talk about not adding an additional day that would impact the staff, but taking away one more in-service day. But then the concern is, we do have a lot of training and service work to do with staff. So that was a concern as well, of taking out one of those additional days from the in-service time. But ultimately, that's an option that
Yeah.
you guys could do as well if you wanted to make it work.
I'm fine with that.
Aside from I don't believe we have anything contracted aside from January 18th.
There's nothing contracted on the 17th, because that was supposed to be the 2
Yeah,
days.
we're correct. There's nothing contracted on the 17th, but we do have stuff contracted on the 18th. What I'm saying is, I don't know if I know we have plans and things we need to get in, but I don't know if we've contracted with anyone for like February 18th. If that makes sense. I don't, but I know that there's, is the eyes getting big? I don't know.
Nothing that can't be canceled.
What?
Could be canceled.
I have something.
the 18th.
plan for the.
Plan.
Plans,
probably be a
right,
plan,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Why is there's no
right,
money in it?
but there's a lot of planning.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's why, yeah, but I just wanted you to know, we did explore those.
Right.
As well, because we felt that, yeah, the easiest would be if we could do it without having any impact.
Yeah.
You know, and if I knew that there was going to be, when the bad weather was coming, if
Yeah,
there was
right.
gonna be
If you
bad
could,
weather,
yeah.
Plan ahead.
Crystal ball.
that wouldn't be a problem. Yeah.
We're gonna have a snow day. I have to be ready for it. I mean, that's a good guess.
What do you think, Kevin?
I'm fine with it.
All right.
All right.
Any other?
So
Otherwise,
we need a motion,
Yeah,
if someone wants to make one.
Kevin?
I move to approve the modified 2021-2022 school calendar as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So moved and seconded to approve the modified 2021-22 school calendar.
Mr. Gayheart. Mrs. Ingersoll.
Yes.
Mr. Martell.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell. Yes. Mrs. Ray.
Yes.
Ms. Stoltz.
Yes.
Ms. Vorpega.
I think I'm
All right, report and discussion item, student report.
Yes, it is.
Student report. Are there pictures?
Many pictures.
I
They
mean,
do,
yeah. So there wasn't very many I could find for the high school, which was unfortunate, but a lot did happen these past 2 weeks. So we had a play called All Together Now. It was like the first full production that they could set up this year since COVID. And I went to it and it was really, really good. They did a really good job. A lot of winter sports started. Boys basketball started last week. Girls basketball started 2 weeks ago. That was great. We had Senator Ron Johnson visit us, which I was allowed to go to, and that was very interesting. It was a very interesting, experience. And just to hear the way that they talk. I wanted to go and see that. Anyways, so then we also had a turkey tango, which was also very cool. The NHS set it up for us, and I think we did money and we did food. I don't know the exact total, but I'll have to ask Paige for that. And we had our Veterans Day Assembly, which of course is always amazing. We love doing that. I went to that with my grandparents, and they really, really appreciated it. It was a very good night. Good day. Okay. Middle school, they had a game night at the field house, and apparently that was a very big success. Had about 100 students attend the event. The Builders Club that came in and met with us. There, you see a little girl in the corner. So they packed 90 boxes of what they were talking about last time. And there was a fun celebration to enjoy popsicles to celebrate their growth and results on their progressive era test for the 6th graders this year. So that was very cool. And we had somebody that earned gotcha. So West Side, 2nd grade, Miss Brusco's class did some POTW Save the City, where they made earth boxes, which I thought was pretty cool. So those are those 3 little kiddos. And then we had some 1st graders being able to work with clay, which is always fun. And Miss Benton's 2nd grade class used watercolors to make realistic turkeys, which is that little guy in the corner. Of course, for Thanksgiving, come on. And then gotcha days. People do gotchas on Fridays where you can pick out a book or some type of fun thing for your book box or whatever. But that was one of the gotchas of this week too, which is really cool. And I remember going to West Side and loving the gotchas. So that was always fun. And then we had some 5th graders create ornaments to send to the Capitol, decorate the tree. And this year's theme was Hometown for Holidays, which is really cool because we're the Christmas card town, obviously. So they made ornaments out of old Christmas cards, which is really fun. And then Miss Gayhart's class did another PLTW signs, and they worked hard to rescue some tigers with compound machines and magnets. And then Jackson also has this thing where they do a video each week for the student council of the stuff that's going on, which I didn't put the video in there. I couldn't figure out how to do it. But I thought it was very interesting that they did that. And then now we're on to Tibbets. Exactly, right? I need it.
3rd graders back.
So Tibbets had their Culver's night, which is always so much fun, and I heard that it was very successful. The Tibbetts Student Council also collected 758 items of food for the Elkhorn Food Pantry. Miss Springer's class, which is the one over on the right, they created bee habitats in PLTW. And of course, they said thank you to veterans for Veterans Day. Now, options, 3rd and 5th grade students had the opportunity to share their personal narratives in their reading cafe in Miss Stallings' class, which I thought was really cool that there was a reading cafe. Mackenzie Stroud had an apprenticeship at accounting at Prop Shift Supply Incorporated. They had a few, and then Kelsey Clue, she also got a youth apprenticeship. And yeah, they also did mock interviews with some children, which is really cool, which is the one all the way on the right, which is always super helpful for kids, especially my age, mock interviews. And then Career and College Academy. So there's Mr. Tadlock. They're oh my goodness. They both start with a T. They both start with a T.
That's the first time we've ever been mixed up.
Yeah.
Really? Interesting. Okay. So here's an update on the bridge. It's looking very well. Big thank you to the Surgery Foundation for that. Sebastian Coy is also now apprenticing at the Comfort Heating and Cooling. And then they're ready to start stage 4 of the home build, which is insulating. But that was a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, they're getting ready to do a kitchen.
How's it going now?
Well, figure we probably should start, see, we don't know what the turnaround time or lead time is on cabinets, so. Start that conversation, so thank you for hosting.
Yeah.
Hope that went well.
Yeah, no, it was great. We enjoyed having them.
Yeah, that's great.
They asked
good
questions.
Thank you.
I think just a couple things I'd add real quick, just in case it comes up. CCA had a smell that was being emitted today that they were concerned with it being a gas smell, like a natural gas. Then it wasn't natural gas, so they figured it might have been sewer gas, but they're all safe and okay. They just evacuated. They went to the south building on the Gateway campus.
Whatever they were doing.
What's that?
They were cleaning the sewers.
They still are, you know, I drove.
Oh, that's probably what it was. It just drifted in the vents and they thought that's what it was.
Say, we're right out here.
All right. So they got to see what it's like to be at Tibbetts on different days when, depends on how the wind blows.
That's probably what it was.
And then I did have a few email complaints regarding our senator visit and presentation, but I just want to, reiterate what I shared with all those parents, that as a school district, we're agnostic politically. And if we have a senator, it doesn't matter which political party or affiliation or, what they've said in the past and so forth, we'll, gladly welcome them to come and have a visit for the students. And as Madeline said, regardless of their perspective of what they share, at a minimum, it's interesting. And we had our AP government students that were there and, participate. That was the group that he likes to work with. And so I think it was an experience for the students to get to meet with the senator and hear his perspectives on a wide range of topics. And he really left it as open-ended questions. So they got to ask a lot of questions.
Which is great for the students.
Yeah.
I didn't attend this year, but I've attended in the past.
Yeah.
And, I think it's a great experience for the students to be able to have a voice.
Yeah.
Love that, so.
Yeah.
And to Senator Johnson's credit, both he and Senator Baldwin, when we went to present at the National Capitol twice for Project Lead the Way at the Senate building, we were the only state of all the school groups that were there that had both senators come by, take time out of their night and come to the Senate building and meet with the students and see their presentations. So they're very engaged and we appreciate them taking the time out to come by. All right.
Thank you, director's report.
Okay,
You're up.
we are ready. Emily was hoping that that all the kids were here to see our report. So we'll do some quick introductions. I'm Chris Strati, the Director of Schoolwork Opportunities.
I'm Emily Lynn, Director of Special Education.
Joanne Pella, CTE Director and Youth Apprenticeship Coordinator from the high school.
Mr. Tom McCarroll could not be here. I just want to let you know that he has put a ton of work into this and deserves a lot of credit for all the results and the continued movement, making sure that we're meeting the needs of all kids. So next. So we're going to kind of just do a presentation. We're going to keep handing it off. And we did this together because it's a collaborative effort. And I'd be remiss not to give Rita Galfus credit for really, you know, I've known her since I was, well, 14. And she is one of the greatest advocates for kids who are underestimated. And she always has been and still remains so. And she really put a lot of energy to get this off the ground. So I think she deserves a lot of, I want to just acknowledge her efforts on that. So we're going to go through a presentation. We're going to kind of connect the work that collectively we're doing to initiatives and work already happening in the district. Going to highlight some data points just to kind of raise the sense of urgency and why we're really focused on this. Go through some background and then talk about what we're presently doing, how we're engaged, and then talk about action steps moving forward. So on our Future Ready dashboard, obviously all of us are familiar and you have the links. We don't have to click on them unless you would like to, Mr. Tadlock, but those are our school district redefining ready dashboard for the district. And then that's the national indicators for redefining ready, which came out of District 214, has now become a national really movement. Our district and our schools have been early adopters. This group and all district and school leaders obviously have come behind it. We're doing some really innovative stuff by looking at that. And I think it's important to circle back that those indicators really talk about being future ready. We have a history and still this kind of, I use mental model to talk about college and career or college or career. It's really, how can all of us just make sure our kids have the skills, dispositions, and credentials to have identify and maintain a family living wage now and in the future, right? So we've been meeting and over time, and we kind of really came together as a group this year to really focus on how are we going to leverage transition for students with disabilities. It's not like this is just starting this year, but I put this quote, Accenture has done a ton of work on trying to hire students and people with disabilities. And they came out with a 2020 report and have been very active in this work. And I thought this was fascinating. Persons with disabilities represent 15% of the world's population, but their participation in the workforce is disproportionately low. Worldwide estimates hold that 80% are not employed. So when you think about how many employers are looking for employees, there's a huge group here that we're not either upskilling, talking to, or engaging in employment opportunities. And I think as we go through this presentation, it's important to understand that our district has always talked about equity and access and how we make sure this is what is good for one is good for all, and that everybody has access to those opportunities. And I put in this slide through an infinite mindset, and I did that because it's important that when we go through the data, this is something everybody's trying to figure out. It's not just Oak Current High School. We're not unique in this, but we are going to be unique in making sure we turn those numbers around. So this slide talks about just some data points. We highlighted kind of 5 key data points from redefining ready. I think the one thing I'll hit the ACT, and Mrs. Bosch talked about this in her director report, in the number of students scoring 16 or higher. And you can see here with disabilities versus the students without, okay? And why does ACT come up? It's not because it's a college readiness data point only. Is it a driver? Sure. But let's also remember that in order to get into a registered apprenticeship, you must have a 16 in math and reading. And in order to qualify for the Gateway Promise, you need a 16 or higher. Now, you can also score on an AccuPlacer, which I have no idea what that is, but I read it. So that's another assessment that both use. Work-based learning experiences, 2 versus 62. Joanne, did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Actually, that,
Go ahead.
that 62 is higher than what that's reflecting there. Work-based experiences is any kind of job shadow, internship, apprenticeship, co-op. And 62 represents only the youth apprenticeship number last year. It's not representing the job shadows we do, nor the internships that we do. So that number is really higher. But as far as students with disability, that number there could very well be correct.
Good.
We are working very hard. In fact, this year alone, we've added at least 6 in YAs or co-ops, not internships, not job shadows. These are truly work experience programs. So.
Does this include our CCA as well?
Well, I was just going to say that. When we look at collaboratively as a district, when you look at the CCA, the youth build, and some of those targeted efforts, that number would also be higher too.
And
So
what we're
this was just pulled from, Mr. Vaccaro just pulled this from the high school.
Got it.
If you flip back to
Good
the
question.
current slide, there was that data point of indicator 14, 44%. That includes the CCA, and that includes everybody, because that's gathered by the state.
Got it.
So basically, Tom calls and finds out, does interviews, how many students have a job or are in like a college or tech school. So 44%, honestly, pretty good compared to the average you found kind of.
Yep.
Right. So that one does. This is data that Tom has been collecting, and he started collecting it last year, and he started collecting. These are kind of the areas that he really wants to collaborate with Joanne and work on placing more students in the work-based learning experiences and the industry-based certifications. So that's,
correct me if I'm wrong, that's juniors and seniors
correct.
that we're talking about then?
That's his data with juniors and
Right.
seniors.
Okay.
And I think when you look at some of the other data points, those are, I think as a district, we would say key drivers in what we believe are the most important stackable credentials that we want kids to see as graduate outcomes, dual credit, work-based learning experiences, industry-based certifications, and co-curricular participation, whatever that looks like, right? So just getting kids involved, because we know that kids were involved in co-curriculars nationally, and the last time we looked at the data at the high school 3 or 4 years ago, has a 1.0, students have a 1.0 GPA higher if they're actively involved in co-curricular participation than those who don't.
So this is another, I don't know, Chris, if you want to elaborate on this, but right when I started this summer, this was something that Chris kind of connected our team with collaboratively over at CISA 2. And so it's called the Transition Action Network. And I think it's like 3 times a year we get together over at CISA 2, and we're able to kind of connect with other local experts, look at developing our K-12 transition goals. And really this whole idea around transition doesn't start at age 14 or 16. Transition starts in kindergarten. And what does our programming for students with disabilities look like that allows them to be future ready? And so looking at, we don't do things one way and then all of a sudden they turn 14 or 16. Oh, now we got to do this extra transition stuff. It really should be a system that's built around preparing students for their future. So this is what this network is about, and it allows us to collaborate and learn and reflect and just have that time to kind of put together a framework.
Who's a part of that network? Are there local businesses?
There are not.
No, educators.
No, so it's out of CISA 2. Stacy Duffy runs it. She's their professional developer. She worked at Fort Atkinson and also at Beloit. She does an excellent job, and I think the power behind it is what she does a great job is bringing in all the key ingredients to a comprehensive K-12 transition framework, which would be areas that Emily's an expert in, from the IEP development to the self-advocacy to the inclusion of academic content, and then to the kind of circling back to what you brought up, Jenny, like how are we getting more businesses on board to support students with disabilities, and how are we creating that really support system and keep seamless transition. So she kind of is the quote unquote expert, and I got to know her through working with Rita and having those conversations, and she does an excellent job of really allowing us to learn from others. She'll work with us and coach us if needed, and just provide us almost like a framework. And it's been a good one meeting, you know,
We have
so,
another one in December.
yeah, so, but we got a lot out of it so far.
Can I get back to your point though? The employers have to be brought to the table.
Yeah.
Too often they're left out.
Yeah.
And just going on and talking to all of our business partners, you know, they have to be invited, like we have an upcoming business partner meeting in December. That topic is going to be addressed, you know, we do have some large industries in Elkhorn that are willing to take our special ed kids, but not enough. And these students are very dedicated. They are at work every day. You know, it takes longer to train, that's true. And I can see where employers would be reluctant or hesitant. But we just have to bring them to the table.
Yeah, the loyalty is there.
Yeah, the loyalty is definitely right.
Yeah.
Okay, so this slide is just in there. I mean, really, what we're looking at here is, like I said, building a system that starts in kindergarten all the way through, you know, 18 to 21-year-old programming, in a system that really looks at these kind of key ingredients to success. So there's been lots of research done in this area. This actually came from one of those published research articles. And so what we're really looking at is building a framework or a system that has each of these components at the forefront of what we're doing. When you look at, you know, what are the biggest predictors of post-school outcomes, it's these things. So anywhere from, you know, Jason, if you wouldn't mind clicking in the next slide, I just want to pull something out. So this research article looked at 20 indicators over like a decade of research. And this is just a subset of that I pulled out. But the top 3 that really come up as, you know, having the highest effect size, meaning the best impact on student outcomes, are goal setting, inclusion in gen ed, and paid employment work experience. And even in talking with Tom Vaccaro over the last couple of months as we've been discussing this, you know, I'm like, Tom, what do you think is missing for your students at the end here? You know, when they're ready to graduate, he's like, work experience. Like, we need to get them working and getting this experience. So, you know, that has to be a huge focus of what we're doing at the high school. But looking younger than that, elementary, middle school, we need to be really working on inclusion. And, you know, I know Elkhorn is making excellent strides in that direction, but it's imperative. They have to have access to that rigorous core curriculum. They have to have that special ed as a service and as a support to be successful in the community in which they live and in school. And then the goal setting piece, really bringing the students into the IEPs and really having them, you know, maybe by middle school, and this is what we're working on, is putting like these goals on a framework, but maybe they're leading their IEPs. Maybe they're talking at a younger age about maybe how their disability affects them and what they need to be successful, because this is how we need to help transition them into working life. So these are kind of the areas that we now are drilling down on. So if you click to the next slide, the transition framework is what we're collaboratively working on here. And we're looking at, you know, in each of these areas, what are some action steps we can take now? And what are some action steps we can continue to build on in the next, you know, 3 to 5 years? So part of that, like I said, is inclusive learning opportunities, parent guardian involvement. You know, how are we really bringing parents into the conversation earlier? Student skills, goal setting, and self-advocacy. And that's an area where Stacey Duffy's been really helpful. She looked at what we have down on our framework so far. We have a little bit of a draft started, and she gave some excellent feedback about how we can get more of that self-advocacy piece kind of built in, and what are some like short-term goals we could set for students, you know, by grade level that they would reach. And then the career development piece, I'm going to kind of let you two talk about, but like Joanne said, getting the employers at the table is step 1. But anything else, you know, with that you two want to add?
Well, I just think our next steps are, as we've highlighted, you know, continue to work on district-wide inclusion, focus on access and participation in general ed, engage student in the IEP process to support self-advocacy, establish a community partnership network to expand upon work experiences for students with disabilities. Don't think that's going to be difficult to find partners. I think we just have to create the right forum, the right ask, have the right conversations. I think that'll be, that really is just, we just have to pull over and make an intentional ask there and get people involved. It's not like our business partners where I said no, or wouldn't see this as something as an opportunity for them, since they call every day looking for people. So develop 18 to 20-year-old programming.
Yeah, I'll pipe in on that. So my understanding is historically Lakeland has provided a good deal of this for students who need that. We do, next year will be the first year where we will have a student who will be at our high school. So we're also trying to develop that at the same time. And we've been talking to other high schools who have 18 to 21-year-old programming. And what we're kind of looking at is building it to be basically work experience with a job coach. So, for example, Tom Picaro maybe would be the job coach, or Joanne would be helping out in getting them placed and meeting with their employers and helping them learn the trade or whatever job they're doing, and having that opportunity to continue with that support until they're 21 with our district. So we're in the very beginning phases of building that as well. But it is something that I think Tom has shown great excitement around and pride in. And I know he says he talks to Joanne quite a bit about kind of getting that rolling. So that's just another thing that we're working on right now.
I do think that's key because, one of the successes we've had with the youth build is that extra year of follow-up. And, having that direct connection and relationship and able to, I had a student follow up, not keep his job. And it just happened, and well-deserving, he earned it. And, but we assisted, and, he came over to the CCA as a graduate in tears. Where's Trotz? I need to talk to Trotz with him. We talked about it, had good conversation. And 3 weeks later, he's in manufacturing, making more money and being successful, right? It was part of the experience. So I think that continued supporting and coaching is really integral, whatever that looks like and what capacity. And if we could provide any of it, it's all helpful.
I think that giving Tom that extra time to be a coach is extremely important. Because these kids, these young men and women, they need to be coached in interview skills and resume building, that type of thing. They just don't have the skills.
Yes.
But with him, available to work with them, that makes a big difference.
Yeah. Can I ask, is there a plan to include students who have a learning disability, have an IEP, but want to go to college? Right now, I'm just seeing a focus on getting them employed and not future college ready. I speak from experience because when my son had an IEP all the way through his junior year of high school and then had a 504 his senior year, and we're going back to 2017, so this is 4 years ago, and when he took the ACT, he scored well above a 16. And he was close enough that if he took it again, if he took the ACT again, he had a chance of raising his score even more to be able to actually even get a scholarship at a college level. So he worked really hard for a year, took it again his senior year. But in that process, he was the very first Elkhorn High School student ever take the ACT a second time. The very first person he'd ever been done before. And that shocked me. And had Rita not stepped in, it wouldn't have happened. Because it took me probably 3 months to even get him to a point where he could get the second time. There was so much red tape that we had to go through to make that happen. And after it happened, he ended up raising his score by 2 more points and getting that scholarship. I just can't believe that there's only one student in the history of high school that had an IEP that went on to college? Are you kidding me? Why are we not encouraging these kids to see college as an option for them?
Yeah, Julie, I would just have to say that I don't believe that to be accurate, actually, as far as students with IEPs going to college. We have one on a yearly basis.
I understand that, but he was the first one to take the ACT for a second time. That was
Yeah.
according to Rita.
I would fact check that as well.
I wanted to answer your question-ish. I obviously didn't move here, so to the history, I don't know, but if you flip back to that second slide with the indicators, we did try to pull out indicators that we feel we need to go forward. Slide 3.
The chart.
The chart. That, like, so for example, the ACT, we need to do better than that. That's obvious.
Yeah.
Dual credit, college classes, co-curricular participation, we do need to do better in those areas. And I would also throw out there from my own personal opinion, is that as we build inclusion as like the default, I think everything else will follow. But I think that we first have to see every student as capable and every student as belonging and every student as being able to do it maybe just in a different way or needing a little different accommodation or needing a little, but until we get to that point, I think, and we're gonna get there, but it is gonna be a process and we have to build that mindset around, inclusion. And then I think, it follows. If you think of our, last spring, Rita talked about the continuous improvement plan, and I think that was the first meeting I was at. And I think I look at tonight as we kind of started at the end. Mm-hmm. We started at transition because we're looking at what happens after high school. That's why we are ultimately here, right? Is to prepare students for life. And then we are looking at, okay, so this is our end goal. What all has to change or be tweaked down in the earlier grades to really be ready for the challenge. And I think there's a lot of good work being done and there's a lot of momentum around that vision. It's just right now we get, okay, what are the action steps? Yeah. Rita, I think, did a great job getting that kind of that conversation and that vision established. And so now we're at this point where now this is where the rubber meets the road. Like we have to start taking action and what are those steps?
I just want to make sure that
we're doing both, right?
That you're doing both, because clearly there are students that aren't going to, college just isn't going to be an option for them no matter what. But I feel like unless they see that as a possibility, then they're not going to.
And I wish Tom was here because he actually had something kind of mapped out, and I'm not going to remember his verbiage he used. But he actually, as we're drafting this, he has something mapped out. Like, if you're planning on going to college, here are the things that we need to make sure we're hitting. If you're planning to go to a tech school, here are the things he does. He has something drafted and mapped out. But I also think that we have to be starting to build that readiness for college a lot earlier than your junior year. Yeah.
And I think the power so when your son graduated, 17?
Yep, 17.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that was.
He just graduated.
No, yeah. I think that was the second year, maybe, or third year that the state had the ACT for all. Okay.
Correct.
I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm just telling the story.
It was new.
Yep. And part of what has been an intentional effort is, and that's the power. And that's why when Rita and I first started having this conversation, and Emily came on board, and Joanna and Tom had a ton of energy going on at the high school with the careers. One of the conversation was, how do we make sure we're connecting all the dots? And that's why this transition network was really important to have those global conversations, because some of those challenges you were referring to come back to IEP, right? And making sure that accommodations are provided. Right. And there's, I sat at the table.
All about accommodations.
Yep, and those weren't always done, and there were plenty of conversations that happened around that. You can trust that. The other side, but I think that being engaged in this trend is just an network will help. I think the other side to it is, what I was gonna say, if you remember back to Mrs. Bosch's director's presentation, if you look at the high school's SIP plans, they had specific goals around increasing ACT for students with disabilities. That was specific. So it's been, you know, the energy's there and your voice is heard.
Yeah.
And
I appreciate you sharing
Yeah.
that personal anecdote though, because it is real and it is very meaningful to every student. I feel you out for me.
Yeah.
When you say students with disabilities, is it just IEPs or does that include 504s?
We're only talking about IEPs in this data.
And one of the things I've argued with the state, and they did change how they counted on like efficiency tests a little bit, but I think special education data collection is almost an enemy of themselves because as you intervene and you have great interventions and you help a kid progress, your kid graduated technically without an IEP and was no longer a student with an IEP, would not show up in the data as a student with an IEP. So you think of all the kids who transition out of IEPs, I've argued for a long time, they should still be counted in that data set if you want to get an accurate picture of the true work and achievement that groups do, and they don't do it. So what you do is you continually, as those students who are successful and overcome and outgrow that need, drop off, they're no longer counted in your data set. So you're always chasing your tail. Like, why are we ever improving? Well, you are. You're just not including that group in your data.
Which is hard to understand as a parent too.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're graduating out of an IEP, my husband wouldn't sign it. Because you fight really hard to get to that point, and then once you get to that point, you feel like there's that huge drop off.
Exactly. And it's even worse at the college level.
And it's okay because there is a transition, but on the parent side too, like I was like, this is great. We've worked so hard. And I was like, no, like we're not there yet. You know, like there's still so much more work. But if it's not including the 504s, then
What, and I'll say, and I, in the beginning of this presentation, I put infinite mindset. And I put that because Rita, Emily, myself are part of the Walworth County Transition Network. And I can tell you, and with great confidence and celebration, that we are doing more to move the needle for all kids. A lot of districts, for a variety of reasons, I'm not assigning blame, but they are really trying to find momentum where we're carrying it. And I think that's a real celebration. So I'm looking forward to seeing the results over the next couple of years on what we can continue to do for all kids.
They're sending out a survey once a year where there are.
One of the other challenge areas, I know it didn't come up in this presentation, I know Kelly's brought this up through CCA and addressed it through a grant that she wrote, and I know in our discussions we've heard this, but the lack of kids having driver's licenses and getting them those work-based experiences. So just be aware, ever since the state took driver's ed out of schools, we're seeing more and more kids not get their driver's license.
Is that because of the cost?
It's not a scheduled class like all of us have, right? So you just, oh, what are you taking? Oh, I got driver's ed and health together every other day, right? That's what I experienced, but.
With that indicator 14, though, for every survey completed, we get money from the, and we have used it so far this year to cover a couple of people getting their license.
Okay.
So you can use it for anything related to transition. And we thought that was the. There was a couple of kids that needed that.
It's when I'm working with the youthful kids, it's a constant conversation. Constant conversation.
Wow.
How are you doing?
Something that can be brought back, because that is a barrier.
I was wondering, is there a way to bring that service back?
Well, I think there's.
Not.
I think we just.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
That's
If
right.
that's something we prioritize and we want to say, look, this would be a valuable community programming, we can.
Well, I think we can think differently about the possible solutions. Some things that I've thought about is, it's an online class right now through CISA 2. Which is a fairly heavy lift. You got to be an independent learner and you got to stay at it, right? What if we had or somebody who supervised and assisted and provided guidance, and, you know, whatever the costs were, I don't really my wife writes the checks, but I don't know what it costs my
rabbit
daughter.
hole right here and somewhere, but I want you to feel like a foreshadow.
Yeah. It's a, yeah. I have a student who is, probably would have a lot more experience than they have their license. It's just, if you talk to them, right, we're good on it, all right, well, so.
Like, I'll just, we had, then, in early, going to place.
Wow. They're higher, isn't it? Okay.
There's more employees that are completely.
Thank you very much for all your work on that.
Yeah. I did think, well, our district has hiring. So that we are setting the example, and, you know, companies want to say, well, what are you doing? We are hiring our own students in the school area, kitchen, and so.
I love that.
That's a major step.
Yeah.
Recommendation to district administrator, personnel.
All right. I want to give thanks to Margaret Block for 3 years of service. She announced that at the completion of this school year, she'll be retiring. We also want to give thanks to Jennifer Landher and Lawrence Orlando for their work in the school district. We have some transfers that are listed there, as well as some new appointments. Are there any questions on the personnel?
Hearing none.
I move to approve the personnel recommendation sheet for November 22nd, 2021, including employment contracts, conditioned upon passing the background check and district mandated drug screening as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the personnel recommendation sheet for November 22nd, 2021, including new employment contracts, conditioned upon passing the background check and district drug screening as presented.
Mr. Gahern?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. Martell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Ray?
Yes.
Ms. Stoltz?
Yes.
Ms. Borpego?
Yes.
Motion carried. School gifts.
From a number of school gifts, the Elkhorn Lions Club has donated $1,000 to the Special Education Department and $200 towards the purchase of books for 4-year-old kindergarten students. Nancy and Randy Thielen donated $2,500 to Tibbetts Elementary to use at the discretion of Mr. Foss. And anonymous donors donated $20,000 to Tibbetts Elementary to be used at the discretion of Mr. Foss. And the Westside Elementary PTA has donated $500 for the purchase of books for gotcha prizes. And Gail Hansen has donated $500 to the Hope Squad at the high school in memory of Cole Fuller.
One more. William and Donna Reese. Is not on yours? And mine says William and Donna Reese have donated $500 to Westside for the purchase of student books.
That one too. Yeah, I don't have that one. That's weird.
Well, yeah, very much appreciated. A lot.
I do have a question, and this is where my other question was, Mr. Truin. When we receive gifts for a specific school to be used at the discretion of that, how is that accounted for? What's the accountability of it? Like, how do we know how that's being used?
The, depends on, if it's a general gift, it will be recorded in our general fund, and then we set up an account number specific for that activity.
Okay.
And then we have also an internal spreadsheet that can kind of track the use of those funds. So we have a number of those already set up. Sometimes it might be to a specific group or organization, then that's under one of those 300 groups, and then we also have separate. Yeah. And then the funds will carry over, so there isn't like a chart. That's kind of how we account.
And in my experience, while they give this at the discretion of generally the plan, the specific cause, maybe some of the playground equipment, that, hey, if you get enough of those, you could do it. Not always, sometimes it is just
I mean,
for
typically the
them to
gifts
fill in
are
and help.
much smaller than $20,000, so it's, but that is a lot of money, so.
It is, and I know we always honor whatever if they have specific
Sure,
wishes.
sure.
Technically, when they give the money, they
Yes.
relinquish control, but we obviously try to.
Try and honor what, their intent was.
If they have a specific intent.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay. The motion.
I move to accept the generous school gifts as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded to approve the generous school gifts of the Elkhorn Lions Club, Nancy and Randy Phelan, anonymous donor, the West Side Elementary PTA, Gail Hansen, and Wynn Donna Reese. As presented. Roll call.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Ms. Stoltz,
Yes.
Ms. Borpego.
Yes.
Motion carried. Second reading of revised policies.
I did not receive any further feedback regarding the revised policies. If there's any that you'd like to look at or pull up, we can pull them up. Otherwise, they should be ready for final approval.
All right, hearing none. Looking for a motion to approve.
I move to approve the revised policies 361 instructional materials, 361 rule instructional material, selection evaluation procedures, 112 non-discrimination policy, and 112 rule non-discrimination complaint procedure as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded to approve the revised policies 361 instructional materials, 361 rule instructional material, selection, evaluation procedures, 112 non-discrimination policy, and 112 rule discrimination complaint procedure as presented.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. Martell,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Ray,
Yes.
Ms. Stoltz,
Yes.
Ms. Borpego.
Yes.
All right, let's do the financial audit. Mr. Truman.
This evening, the board's being asked to consider, I guess, accepting the 2020-21 audit report as prepared by Riley, Penner, and Benson. This is a process your business office goes through on a yearly basis. We start in May and spend a couple of days going through our books and then come back at the end of July and spend a week. And we get final reports then in November. And there's a lot of communication between those dates as well as part of the process. And they have a specific program that the Department of Public Instruction requires that they go through. There's really two main reports. There's a management letter and then the financial statements. The management letter typically will have some certain recommendations on things we could do maybe to improve at the organization. They've recommended for a couple of years now that we increase under fixed assets what's called the capitalization threshold. I've always had it at $1,000. It does involve a little more detail for us, but if we raise it to $5,000, then that's what they're recommending. It's actually easier. So the capitalization, what that means is the depreciation assets 5,000 and more, we depreciate in our books, which in the private sector makes a lot of sense.
Right.
In the public sector, a school building is still worth a lot.
Yeah.
Even after 50 years.
Right.
So, but we follow that accounting requirement. So I will bring probably through either policy or the school board a recommendation to increase that threshold. So that'll be coming probably in the next month or two.
Okay.
There's some regulations in terms of GASB under leases that'll be changing. So they're just kind of informing us of that. I think there was an accounting journal entry that I prepared. I did not enter, and they recognized that as an unreported journal entry. And the reason I didn't, it has to do with our self-funded dental insurance. And at the end of the year, we do a calculation that's called the IBNR, which is incurred but not recorded entry in terms of anticipated expenses. And during last year, we didn't experience as much. I think there was a deferred in terms of people going to that procedures.
Yeah.
So having that balance, I think, is a good thing. So we just carry that forward. I think some people are going to have additional procedures that they didn't have. If I would have done that entry, then we probably would have had just. So the others are fine with it. But the two are, I think, and then the financials, number 70 pages. And we certainly can walk through that with you. There's a beginning section, which is the management discussion and analysis. That's actually something that I prepare after the financials are done. And that's supposed to be kind of an explanation of what the financials include. Then we have what's called our district-wide statements, which is kind of a combination of all of our funds. I think it's kind of an overall big picture perspective of the school district. It compares to last year. It's a little bit not realistic, I don't think, in terms of comparing those 2 years because we did a building project with the St. Pat's school. So that's something that comparison doesn't an apples to apple comparison. And then it shows the fund by fund comparisons. I think that's on. Let's see here.
Just let me know if you want me to go to a page.
Yeah, if you go to page 17, Jason, I'll just jump through a couple of these pieces. I don't know if you can see the pages here, but anyway, kind of looking at the balances in terms of the fund balances, I think that's what's on page 17. So if you go down a couple more pages, Jason, you can kind of see. Yeah, so if you go up there, you'll kind of see a certain line. Go down just a little bit, Jason, and don't touch the mouse. So, right there. You go down a little more. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. But you'll see kind of the changes in the fund balances from the beginning to the ending of the year. So you'll see the general fund actually increased a little over $700,000. That kept us at about the same percentage of our fund balance, about 25%. So that's what we were at the year before. Then you'll see kind of the other funds are combined there. The capital project fund obviously increased because we have the remaining funds from the St. Pat's project. And then in the last column is the combination of the other funds, which include our debt service fund and our food service fund. That's the major increases there. Our food service fund increased our fund balance by about $300,000 last year, which is pretty significant. But that's the additional reimbursement that the federal government gave us. And then we turn around and have to increase prices. It doesn't make a lot of sense, Susan, but that's kind of how the regulations work. So that's kind of the fund balance piece. If you jump, Jason, to page, I think it's 49. That's kind of our OPEB. You can kind of see it goes back, I think, to 2017. Now it's kind of hard to go through their page by page. Yeah, go up just a little bit more there. It kind of shows the change in our OPEB and the percent of that obligation as it compares to our payroll. So back in 2017, our OPEB liability was 30% of our payroll, and this last year now it's 7%. So it's going down every year as we pay off that obligation. So. And then at the end of the report, there's some supplemental forms. There's at the end a number of explanations on all the federal and state dollars we get. There's 2 pages there that show you all the grants and entitlements we get from the state and federal government. We also are subject for single audits this year, which we are every year. And they pick the ESSER funds, special education, and Medicaid. So those are like separate audits on top of our regular audits that they go through. So, and that's kind of the conclusion of our financial statements. I think when I started in this profession, I think our financial report was probably like 22 pages and 70 pages. So, questions? I have to give credit to our office, our business office, because they really are the key people here. It's been a lot of time working with the auditors and pulling together a lot of information as part of the audit process each year. So,
And I think there's a lot of work that goes into this.
Oh my
all year
goodness.
long To make sure, because I mean, these people are coming in to audit, their job is basically to find something, right? I mean, that's.
Right.
And the things that they generally find are things that are just little changes. Like,
Right.
okay, we're gonna capitalize at 5,000 instead of 1,000.
Right.
Is that necessary? No, it's not necessary. Is it gonna make things easier? Yeah, it's gonna make things easier. But overall, when you're talking millions of dollars that are going through here.
Yeah.
And they find very little.
Yeah, it's pretty nitpicky.
if you saw a report, a management letter that's 6, 7, 8 pages long, then I think that gives you a sense of maybe there are some things we need to change, but.
Yeah, it got like 3.
Well, there were a few things at the end. I mean, there were
Yeah,
a few
just a couple of
paperwork
recommendations.
Yeah. Things that got overlooked, but there wasn't. I mean, nothing.
No.
That I would consider.
It's surprising, there's a lot of people that request, I say people, I should say entities, financial groups, but call all the time looking for our financial statements. And then we also put them on our webpage too, so they're available to the public. So, and I do have a couple hard copies if anyone's interested.
Other questions for Mr. Truon? Unless we do need to accept our financial promotion.
I move to accept the 2020-2021 financial audit and management letter as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded to accept the 2020-2021 financial audit and management letter as presented. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Gayheart?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. Martell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell? Mrs. Ray?
Yes.
Ms. Stoltz?
Yes.
Ms. Warpigel?
Yes.
Motion carried. Preliminary 2022 summer maintenance projects.
Now, this is much earlier than typically we would be
Yeah, I thought
bringing
so.
to the board maintenance projects for next summer.
Yeah.
But as we started the process, and particularly we started looking at a roofing project, we worked with industrial roofing services to help us put the bid specs and the project together. Early on, they indicated if you want to do this summer with the supply chain and issues associated with it, you really want to get going much earlier. So as we're putting this together at this juncture and this evening, we're really just asking approval to proceed with the roofing project at the high school. We got 3 contract bids on that. Cudahy, I believe, was the low bid on that. And we'd like to.
I'm sorry, who was it?
Cudahy.
Cudahy.
Yeah. So, I think if you clicked on the number there, actually, I think the bid summary is there. It's might be on the second page. We had 3 contractors, all 3 of which had done work for us in the past. Oh, I'm sorry. I believe it was Carlson was the bid on that. I said Cudahy. Would be the contractor. We included as part of the bid specs, there's an adjustment with supplies up to $15,000. As part of their bids this year, they had to give us documentation on what the supply cost would be. And then as they get closer to the actual project, if that changes, they have to document what that is. And if it's within 15,000, we can accept that, or we can say we're not going to proceed. So we have some discretion, but they said they can't guarantee prices right now for next spring. I can understand. So I think the next project we're going to probably look at doing, and the Buildings and Ground Committee talked about this a little bit when they met last week, is the finishing up the LEDs at the high school. And if we did this project and that project, that's probably most of our budget for next year, but we're still putting together the rest of the needs, and we'll come back at a later date, maybe January or February the latest for the rest of the project.
This is just for the main roof at the high school, right?
It's
'Cause didn't we
the
just do the
Suki
pool?
Gym.
Oh,
Suki
it's
Gym.
just the, okay, got it.
So there's 22 roofs at the high school.
Oh, gosh.
Um,
Okay, because we just did the pool, right?
We just did the pool
Yeah.
and we did the tech ed area,
Got
kind
it.
of where the project lead the way classrooms are.
Yep,
We did that last summer, and then we did Jackson, Kinney Gym.
got it.
So we've done a lot of roof projects. But if we do this project, we think we may be able to get by the following year without doing a roof project, and then we can look at our other maintenance.
And how long, like, when was the last time we did the Suki Gym?
Like how,
It was 20-something years ago.
okay,
It might have been 24 years
Okay.
ago.
so we're right in.
Well, we asked, could we push another year and it's in batch?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had pictures.
No,
and
it's, you're totally, 24
Yeah.
years, yeah, you're
Yeah.
totally within that realm of needing to get it done, yeah.
And then the LED lights, I think I know the annual savings on electricity was over $40,000 projected.
That's
So
awesome.
that has an instant,
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
right away, get that done,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
saving on some of that
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah.
So I think that will probably be one of the proposals, but tonight we're looking at just the roofing one.
Okay.
Any questions? All right, ready for motion?
I move to approve the preliminary 2022 summer roofing project as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the preliminary 2022 summer roofing project.
Mr. Gayheart? Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. Martell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Ray?
Yes.
Ms. Schultz?
Yes.
Ms. Warpigel?
Yes.
Announcements?
All right, we need to schedule a short policy committee meeting. I want to know if Monday, December 15th, at noon with the. And we'll just trust the board.
Okay.
All right, and then I did have a quick construction update. The
You said get through the board notes.
the board notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hyperlinked the meeting. Or.
We can all.
Yeah, if you want to pull that up, I just wanted to give you the visual and share that. We don't really have to cover it, but we're moving right along over there at St. Pat's on the addition. They've got the outside wall, roof up, and options, sorry, yes, overt options. And they should have it finished the end of January, minute or February. The doors were the bigger
Oh,
issue.
yeah. Door slabs
The
are-
glazing definitely will be delayed. I think when they
Yep.
make it the frames in, so.
Yep, door
So it
slabs are
might
a
be
nightmare
frames
right now.
and plywood. Unless you have some truckers that can get some glazing or some areas. Okay, that's all I have, and just that we do have a closed session.
All right, in closed session, looking for motion to adjourn to closed session.
So I think it was a public forum, but
There's no community participation at this time. You can come at the next board meeting, which is on December 13th, and there's community participation at 6 o'clock. Or you can send me an email, or you can communicate to your student reps on the board as well. All right, but yeah, let me know at 6 o'clock and we have a community participation. All right, thanks. We have to follow that legally. All right, thank you.
So looking for a motion to adjourn to closed session.
I make a motion to adjourn to contemplating or to a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parenthetic 1, parenthetic C, to discuss employee performance.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85C to discuss employee performance. The school board will now reconvene in open session. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gayheart?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. Martell?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell? Mrs. Ray?
Yes.
Ms. Stoltz?
Yes.
Ms. Warpigel?
Yes.
Motion carries.